You guys see that journalist who wrote the article? I think it was on Slate. I could be wrong on that. Talking about how she was accepted into ICE, even though she's a known like lefty journalist. And in addition to that, she didn't even fully fill out the form. She didn't even fill out like the confirm you're not a felon, domestic abuser, whatever else. Like she put in like the bare minimum on filling out the form, and it didn't matter. Not only like no vetting, but no standards at all. I mean, like worse than you might even expect. No excuse for being unemployed now, chat. That's true. That's fucking true. People in chat are like, the job market's so hard. Buddy, they are handing jobs out for free right now. Yeah, here it is. You've heard about who ICE is recruiting. The truth is far worse. I'm the proof. What happens when you do minimal screening before hiring agents, arming them, sending out in the streets? We're all finding out. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. The ICE Expo in the Dallas area, where my application journey began, required attendees to register for a specific time slot, presumably to prevent throngs of eager patriots from flooding the event and overwhelming the recruiters. But when I showed up at 9 a.m., the flood was notably absent. There was no line to check in and no line to go through security. That's fucking bleak, man. That is really, really, really bleak. You're offering like a $50,000 sign up bonus, high pay for ICE agents, literally no job requirements whatsoever. And in the Dallas Fort Worth area, you can't find that many applicants. I walked down nearly empty hallways, past a nearly empty drug testing station, and into the event proper, where a man directed me to a line to wait in for an interview. I took my spot at the end. There were only 6 people ahead of me. While I waited, I looked around the esports stadium Arlington, an enormous blacked out event space optimized for video game tournaments that had a capacity of 2,500. During my visit, there couldn't have been more than 150 people there. Hopeful hires stood in tiny groups or found seats in the endless rows of cheap folding chairs that faced a stage ripped straight from Tron. Everything was bright blue and lit up and sci-fi future angular. Above the monolithic platform hung 3 large monitors. The side monitors displayed static propaganda posters that urged the viewer to defend the homeland and join ICE today, while the large central monitor played 2 short videos on loop, about 10 minutes of propaganda footage, again and again and again. After about 15 minutes of waiting, an extraordinarily normal-looking middle-aged woman waved me forward. I sat across the black folding table from her on one of the uncomfortable black chairs. She asked for my name and date of birth and whether I am over 40. Did I have law enforcement experience? No. Military experience? Yes. Did I retire from the military at 20 plus years or leave once my enlistment was up? The latter, I told her, then repeated my carefully rehearsed, completely true explanation for why the resume I'd submitted had a large gap. I had a little bit of a quarter life crisis, ended up going to college for part of that time, and since then I've been kind of gig economy stuff. She was spectacularly uninterested. Okay, what location is your preference? After some dithering, I said on my home state of New York. That was the last question. The entire process took less than 6 minutes. The woman took my resume and placed the form she'd been filling out on top. They are prioritizing current law enforcement first. They're going to adjudicate, she told me. If my application passed muster, I'd received an email about the next steps, which could arrive in the next few hours but would likely take a few days. And then they got back. And then the email came. Turns out you only get the sign up a $50,000 sign up bonus after 5 years of them out. Yeah, but the average person signing up for ICE is legitimately too low IQ to understand that. Like I'm saying that unironically. Like the 50K sign up bonus is still should be considered a genuine incentive to new signups because they are not smart enough to understand that. 5 years, the agency won't exist in 5 years. God willing. During a moment of protracted silence, the agent threatened to put the video back on to know what a question is. I asked about harassment and doxing. We will prosecute people to the fullest extent of the law. This is like a real man. I really wish that I could find the article that quote was pulled from. I was trying to find it yesterday, but like I was reading an article, or at least a snippet of an article, talking about how within the ranks of ICE, more and more and more of them are like requesting leave for psychiatric reasons. More and more of them are talking about being like disowned by their family. Like the average member of ICE is not some kind of like 35-year-old thick-necked hyper chud whose entire family is like, yeah, go on, beat up those blacks or whatever, you know? The average ICE agent is like a late 20s to early 30s fail son who has no job prospects, is low IQ, has basically no hope for their future, no wife, no life, and they sign up because they just want the fat cash, and like they're not really like especially loyal. Like they're hateful people, but they're not like ideologically motivated for the most part. And then they're now facing this huge wave of like their families disowning them, anxiety about getting doxxed. Now a lot of them are thinking like, oh fuck, you know, Christy Noem is like really like ramping up the rhetoric. Now we're worried, like, will I be able to get jobs after this? Like my name is going to end up out there. Will I be able to get regular work after this? Let alone being prosecuted for my complicity in these crimes. Like, will I even pass a basic background check? You know? It's kind of sad. Yeah, but it's also kind of funny. There have to be consequences. This was for Marx the essential point of the lumpen proletariat. For Marx, bribing them with childish money bribes was the science of the lumpen proletariat. Man, if the definition of lumpen proletariat is that you're willing to compromise on your working class ideals for money, I'm afraid that more people are in the lumpen proletariat than we might be willing to admit. It's like 5 people who are part of the actual proletariat. For real, units like ICE are generally filled by low intelligence people who cannot get a proper career. I had a colleague once study that on the case of Argentina in the 70s. The death squads of the military junta were filled by officers who failed at careers in the normal army branches. It makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Like, you're talking about, think of being a part of a death squad or like a Hitlerite, you know, secret police faction. Think of it as like a political equivalent of the high risk work that you would compensate an oil rig worker for, or like a lumberjack. There are jobs that pay well, not because they're high skill necessarily, but because you're taking on a lot of risk. Not to say that being an oil rig worker or a lumberjack's easy. It's not. But I mean, like, the reason they get paid what they do is because they're legitimately really difficult jobs. There are a lot of jobs that kind of fit in that you know, in that purview. And in a way, like being ICE or being a member of a death squad for a junta, they fit those categories because you need to pay people enough to overlook the long-term consequences. This ended up being the case in Germany too, right? A lot of people who worked with the SS, higher up officers, whatever, yes, a lot of them did get hired by like American intelligence or became part of our fucking rocketry program or whatever, but a lot of them also lived like wretched, miserable lives as pariahs. A lot of them had to flee to Argentina. A lot of them like there is like a long-term social cost. You are risking a lot by getting involved in that kind of work, you know? The average Wehrmacht recruit was not getting, you know, persecuted in Nuremberg after the war, right? They were just like, good night, y'all, and fucking, you know, reintegrated, or tried to at least. But the people who were like at the level, they were risking a lot more. It makes sense. The paperclip guys had to be nerds. Yeah, I mean, it's a reaffirmation of the idea that like within the far right, very few people are truly ideologically motivated, right? Like when Nazi Germany fell, a lot of the higher ups in the German government, if they were true Nazis, like ideological Nazis, why would they ever work with the Americans? Like they literally thought that we were like a Jewish controlled fake state. Like we were too polluted by immigrants. America was fucking chock full of non-white people, you know. They like the idea of working with the Americans would have been anathema to their virtues, but they obviously didn't fucking care. They were like, oh, you'll give me a paycheck and like, you know, immunity from prosecution. Sure, I'll help you with your rocketry. They don't give a fuck. Like it's always like that, man. Very, very, very rarely are these people that committed. When the war was going wrong, they were hoping the West would join them in their fight against the Soviets. Oops. Oh no, we should have kept a one front war. Ah, should have finished dealing with Britain first. Ah. Somehow, despite never submitting any of the paperwork ICE had sent me, not the background check or the identification info, not the domestic violence affidavit, none of it, ICE had apparently offered me a job. According to the application portal, my pre-employment activities remained pending, and yet it also showed I had accepted a final job offer and that my onboarding status was EOD, entered on duty, the start of an enlistment period. I moused over the exclamation mark next to onboarding and a helpful pop-up appeared. Your EOD has occurred. Welcome to ICE. I clicked through to my application tracking page. They'd sent my final offer on September 30th, it said, and I had allegedly accepted. Welcome to ICE. Your duty location is New York, New York. Your EOD was on Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. By all appearances, I was a deportation officer. Without a single signature on agency paperwork, ICE had officially hired me. Perhaps, if I'd accepted, they would have demanded my pre-employment paperwork, done a basic screening, realized their mistake, and fired me immediately. And yet, my pending and upcoming tasks list suggested a very different outcome. My physical fitness test had been initiated on October 6th, it said, 3 days in the future. My medical check had apparently been completed on October 6th. This is literally the easiest job in the world to get. There is not a job on Amazon warehouse worker, McDonald's cashier. There is no job on earth that is this easy to get. Nothing. Every other job in existence would subject you to higher scrutiny than this. The portal also listed my background check as completed on October 6th. Had I preemptively passed? Was I seriously going to let me start training without finding out the first thing about me? I reached out to ICE for an explanation, but never heard back. The only thing left for me to do was press the green accept button on the homepage. Maybe I should have. Maybe no one would have ever checked my name and I could have written the story of a lifetime. Or maybe the agency infamous for brutalizing and disappearing people with no regard for the law or basic human rights would have figured out exactly who I am while I was in one of their facilities with no way to escape. I'm not actually a domestic terrorist sent straight from Antifa headquarters, but to a paranoid fascist regime increasingly high in their own supply, I sure look like one on paper. Self-preservation won out. I hit decline, closed my browser, and took a long, deep breath. The pre-acceptance of the medical check is the funniest part of this to me, even more so than them not requiring any background check. Absolutely phenomenal. Keep in mind that for the physical fitness test, they have been dropping the standards consistently. Like, they had to remove sit-ups. Like, the fucking Meal Team 6 ass applicants that they've been getting fielded, couldn't, their tummy too big, too round, you know? Couldn't do the sit-ups. What is stopping actual terrorists or jihadists or even foreign agents from applying to ICE now? I mean, probably the fact they've got better things to do, right? Seems kind of like a loser's game. I don't know, man. It's just, I don't know. Who is this journalist? Why, this is the one, the only Laura Jadid. Were you talking about this news snippet? Maybe. Such confrontations or scenes of death have led to a mental health crisis among many ICE agents as well as Border Patrol agents. This has pushed them to seek help from government chaplains, behavioral health experts, and other agents who offer volunteer peer support. The goal of these official programs... This isn't exactly it. It might be from the same article, though. You get the point. Pretty fucking crazy, though. Stupid motherfuckers. You're never getting that $50,000. At this level of quality control, legit and undocumented immigrant could get a job at ICE? Yeah, they literally didn't do a background check. Do we know if they just arm anyone with no credentials to fire a weapon? Yes, we do know that. Yeah, that's what this article says. They were accepted as an ICE agent without submitting any background information. Like, like you could be a felon. You could have domestic violence rap, which in many states prevents you from owning a firearm. Like, all of these, you don't even have to like submit real identification. Just run on in there, you know. Here's a gun. Exclusive. Leaked documents detail the dizzying scope of ICE operations. Secret ICE programs revealed. Operations Benchwarmer, Tidal Wave, Abracadabra, Dust Off, Fleur de Lis. These are so fucking soy, man. Jesus Christ. Everything has to be a goddamn operation name. COINTELPRO. It had one name. It was one operation, and it was so wide-reaching. COINTELPRO. Classic. Who the fuck is going to talk about Operation Tidal Wave? Operation Benchwarmer. Ken Klippenstein mentions he thinks NSPM-7 is being used against Renee Good for the domestic terror classification. Yeah, probably. It makes sense. I mean, it seems like pretty transparent. The whole point of the NSPM-7 designation was to open up the federal government and allow them the scope and the power that they would need in order to classify literally any opposition as domestic terrorists, right? Like, there's no limit to that. Everyone they oppose is a domestic terrorist. Thankfully, none of that is law, but it does allow them to open up the scope of their investigations. Of course, law doesn't matter that much if they just kill you. So, you know. A 15-page long document marked Law Enforcement Sensitive details 21 different major ICE operations resulting, so it says, in 6,852 apprehensions since June. That's it? In the entirety of the country with 300 million people and allegedly 20 million illegal immigrants? All these operations have led to a grand total of less than 7,000 apprehensions? That's it? Jesus Christ. You know that like 99% of the remigration that has taken place since Trump took over has been voluntary, right? Like, it's not ICE deporting people. It's people leaving. It's some, you know, Philippe in Los Angeles going like, yeah, I don't want this smoke, and just walking back down the border. They've barely managed to get anything done on their own. 2,400 have occurred in Minnesota in the past few weeks. 2,400 undocumented immigrants apprehended, or just 2,400 arrests? Because keep in mind, the majority of people that ICE arrests just end up getting turned back out on the street. Remember that Chicago operation with the Black Hawk helicopter? All that money, pomp and circumstance and filming, and then every one of those people went free afterwards? Just doing it for the fucking cameras. The only reason they're in Minnesota right now is because of Nick Shirley, and we'll get to him. Like, it was literally just a YouTube video. Let's do it. Let's go, boys. Get those fucking Somalis. Yeah. Aura and hype moments. The hype moments in question being like, America's funniest home videos shit. ICE agents slipping on, well, ICE making a fool of themselves. ICE agent can't fucking scratch their balls in Minneapolis right now without 20 people with cameras nearby documenting it, you know? They're miserable. Another briefing about Operation Benchwarmer reveals the employment of agents dressed in plainclothes to disguise themselves as ordinary people in an attempt to gather intelligence. Intelligence. Plainclothes agents have been embedded in transport vans, sally ports, processing areas, and detention cells to gather important tactical intel and or information, the briefing says, of this nationwide operation. The purpose? It's to focus on collecting info not normally gained during formal interviews. Nice. We love our illegal acquisition of interview information. Things as basic as ICE's use of force policy, its use of deadly force policy, are completely blacked out so the public can't see them. Opposition to ICE's conduct following Renee Good's death has spread throughout the Department of Homeland Security, as I previously reported. The discontent is also affecting the Justice Department, with several top federal prosecutors in Minnesota resigning over pressure to investigate Renee Good's widow. Meanwhile, the FBI is itself, they're trying to go after her widow just for no reason, basically. Like, there's even been some mainstream media reporting cementing this. I believe a CNN article that came out either today or late last night. The phrasing was incredible. It was like leaked. Renee Good, Renee Good's wife enrolled children in school that, quote, taught resisting ICE tactics or something. Like the school that the child went to taught the kids about their legal constitutional rights. And the media's framing it as like some kind of deep undercover Antifa operation. Like, this wasn't just a regular mom taking a kid to school, This was like a elite Antifa school they were being sent to. Good stuff. I know I can find that if I just look. Yeah, here we go. Last night. The woman killed by an ICE agent in Minneapolis last week served on the board. Oh, here we go. I slightly misremembered the details. Served on the board of her son's school, which linked to documents encouraging parents to monitor ICE and directing them to training. Again, the documents in question were like a know your rights kind of thing. So it's like, Antifa agent here. They're treating it like it's undercover operation. And that phrasing isn't too bad. Yes, it fucking is. What is the relevance of this? She was murdered by ICE. So she was concerned with her rights? Like, oh, did you know did you know the Jew that was killed by the Gestapo previously was known to have talked about how the Gestapo were killing Jews? It has been the position of the administration for the entirety of Trump's second term that telling people what their legal rights are is illegal. Like, they were doing this with AOC way back in the beginning. AOC was making videos on what your legal rights are if you're targeted by ICE, and they were treating it like she was, emboldening, empowering, and giving seditious information to the enemy. Implicit justification of the murder? Absolutely, 100%. Other parts of the FBI, sources say, are also alarmed by ICE's heavy-handedness and its creeping takeover. One senior FBI official tells me there is widespread concern that ICE's actions are coloring the American public's view of law enforcement in general. Wow, really? The source says that enforcing the law demands scrupulous adherence to the law. In doing so, and fear that ICE has abandoned such a fundamental principle, bleeding through masking, and its belligerence towards the public, the law doesn't apply to it. How deep? Yeah, CBS straight up lying? Yeah, of course, obviously, it's CBS. It's fucking owned by Zionists now, like directly. Literally, they put a Zionist czar in there, like a fascist whose job it is to control the output of the company. It's like worse than Fox News at this point. What's the article they're putting out? ICE agent who shot Renee Good suffered internal bleeding, officials say. Which officials? The Department of Homeland Security. Wow. Officials confirm he nearly died. Yeah. I know. Just like Trump said. Yeah. A bruise counts as internal bleeding, mind you. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Of course. The needle is continuing to be moved. It might be time to abolish private media. We do need to agree on some kind of national standard for truth in media because I think the past couple of years, not just the past couple of years, but especially the past couple of years, have really cemented the fact that the free marketplace of ideas stuff just doesn't work. And on some level, lying needs to be illegal. You know, it's not like the specific implementation would have to be delicate, careful, moderate, and sometimes it would have to ease towards moderation when maybe it would be more satisfying for it to go hard, but some version of that needs to be a thing, you know? Like democracy, civilization cannot survive if everyone's access to information is gatekept behind like 10 or 20 of the world's richest men who have complete control over what everyone else sees. Not just directly through media, but indirectly through algorithm access or whatever. Or the fact that Zionists have openly crowed about how they want to own TikTok so they can suppress pro-Palestinian content. European style public broadcasters are very good, publicly funded but independent. No, not really. They're marginally better than American media, but I've seen how, DW4 and the BBC cover Gaza, Israel, trans rights, whatever else. At the end of the day, like it goes deeper than just like direct corporate control. There are still like incentive structures there. Weren't there rules like that in the 80s that got removed? I don't know if the re-implementation of those rules would be enough, but you know who to thank for that. You know who to thank for their removal. You know who it was. A while ago, you talked about how this dishonesty slowly erodes away at democracy, and it's stuck with me. This government requires people to act in good faith, otherwise the whole system doesn't work. Yeah, it's basically an extension of what I said before about how the anonymity and abstraction offered by the internet encourages monstrous behavior in people. You kind of get detached from the immediate social and moral consequences of bad behavior in person. People are way more likely to be mean online than they are in person, because in person it's just easier to empathize with people. And also, even if you want to be a huge dick, you're there, right? If you're a huge dick, your ass is on the line. Your face, your voice. People get mad at you. You can't just turn the computer off or whatever, you have to deal with the consequences. You could get punched in the face. That's true. That's a legitimate, genuine, authentic, and sometimes valid socially moderating force. The fact that if you upset people around you, they might hit you. It doesn't come up often, at least not in my life, but there are social purposes to these things. The internet doesn't really offer that. Likewise, the total detachment from accountability that is endemic to this corporate controlled media environment. I mean, more so than before, right? It doesn't allow democracy to function. You can't have it. You have to make a choice. Do you want democracy? If yes, you need some really strong constraints on corporate controlled media. It's just, there's no way around it. It's just a bullet that you have to bite. And if you are so obsessed with letting 10 or 20 of the world's richest people have unfettered control over all the information that you consume, if that's really important to you, then okay, you can't also have the democracy. You don't get to have both.